Haribo, Nisai Gora Haribo. All right. So, am I connected to this thing? Why is it not showing my laptop?
You can't really.
Nisai Gora Haribo. All right. We are going to do a quick bhajan. It's very easy bhajan. Before we chant. Okay. First, we'll do the meaning. So this bhajan is called Jai Radha Madhava. Rishi, where's the screen go? Okay. All right. So if you guys can look, we're going to begin now. So we're going to just do the meaning. We're going to talk about the sweet pastimes of Krishna. And this song kind of explains some of the qualities and activities of Krishna. Maybe we'll get into some of them. And I'll get out of the way here. And it says, Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous or loving pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the cowherd maidens of Braj, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yashoda, the delighter of the inhabitants of Braj, and he wanders in the forests along the banks of the river Yamuna. So that's all. And Srila Prabhupada was very fond of this song and sang it just before his lectures. So we're going to kind of follow in that footsteps here, and we're going to sing this song. So I guess we'll do it in this. Okay, so repeat after me. Oh, you guys actually, the picture of me is in the way here. Yeah, try this. Jai. Actually, can someone control the laptop and actually make it bigger so everyone can see it? Who's tech savvy? Rishi, I know you're tech savvy. Yes, I'm aware, but I don't want to position it and play at the same time. Jai. That's one of the reasons I forgot to put the original sound on Zoom, so they didn't really get to hear that, I'm sure. So sorry about that. So anyway, we're gonna begin now with Krishna pastimes. Does anyone know what we talked about last week? You know how I know not many of you know what we talked about last week? Because most of you were not here last week. But last week, I'll give a recap. Peter, can you maybe just pull that thing a little closer to me so I have a little bit more neck flexibility? That's good, right there. That should be good. Yep, I can go all the way over here if I have to. All right, so we did the pastimes of Kaliya. Rishi, you can actually hit the switch on that. The switch in the back, just hit it. The switch. Perfect. There you go. All right, I can see now. Yeah, so we talked about Kaliya. Kaliya was the serpent demon, and he had many hoods, and he was very envious, and he was filled with so much poison that he actually completely made toxic a little portion of the Yamuna, like a little lake-like offshoot of the Yamuna. And anything that touched it died, including all of the cowherd boys, the Sakas of Krishna. So we talked about that and how Krishna ultimately, he wanted to challenge those who would ever endanger his dear devotees, namely the cowherd boys. And then he got himself in a tussle with Kaliya. Kaliya squeezed him nice and tight. And it looked like that Krishna was going to be defeated by this very envious demonic serpent named Kaliya. But as we know, the pastime goes, Krishna kind of feigned a struggle for 2 hours or so, and then all the residents of Vrindavan gathered pretty much to mourn that they thought Krishna was going to die at the hands of the serpent. And the next thing you know, Krishna puts on an artistic dance show, and he wriggles loose of the Kaliya demon, and he begins to dance on the heads of Kaliya. very artistically, very skillfully, and also in such a way that every time he tapped his foot, he would beat down Kali. Kali had hundreds of heads. Like you've probably heard of what is that? A hydra. That's what we talked about last week, right? A hydra. It's a multi-headed serpent. It's in a lot of mythology, or what's thought to be mythology in ancient Greeks and Romans and Celtics and in India as well. So Kali has like 100-headed hydra serpent, and he would get, every time he would get kicked, he would vomit up poison, because he was a very poisonous serpent. And that poison has a representation. It has our own cruelty and intolerance. Krishna is actually doing this to us as well. We also, what did Bhaktivinoda Thakur say? Oh, he's the personification of malice. To have ill intentions for other. Palash, hey, how are we doing? So the personality of malice. So if you have this type of harmful or evil intentions towards other, with malintent it's called, it's a legal term. If you have any malintent towards others, Krishna's going to kick that poison out of you. It's necessary actually that he kicks that poison out of you. If you become at all sincere, he can let you keep the poison if you'd like, if you don't even want to take any type of purification process. But anyone going on through a purification process is going to get Krishna's artistic dancing upon one's life, and also that artistic kicking the poison out of us. And we need it. Where anyone who thinks that, oh, I'm a stand-up guy, I'm a great guy. You know how I know you're not that great of a person? What do you guys think? Everyone's like, wait, what are you going to say? I'm not a great person. No, but there's a litmus test. Do you know where all the great people are? Great personalities, where do they belong? Maybe. Yeah, Goloka Vrindavan is one level, but at the very least Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means the place beyond anxiety. The reason that we're suffering in this world of birth, death, disease, old age, many anxieties constantly, is because actually we're kind of imprisoned in this world. It's called Devi Dham, or you could say the imprisonment of Devi. I know no one wants to hear, like, wait a second, you invited me here today to tell me I'm in prison? Why would you say that to me? Because it's true. We're all slaves of our own vices, our own devices. We're slaves of our bodily senses, which actually have nothing to do with who we are. We're slaves of the temporary pleasures of this world that ultimately are in relation to us in a false egoistic way, with us thinking we are this body and we are the controller and we are the enjoyer, when actually none of that is actually objectively true. It's a subjective illusion called Maya that we're all part of. This is all explained in Bhagavad Gita. If this is foreign to you, just read Bhagavad Gita, and actually this can be very clear to you. Actually, it's probably already very, very clear to you, because you're probably wondering, why am I suffering in this world? You know, I try everything I do to try and avoid different levels of suffering, and yet every day it seems like there's something new that's an obstacle and causing me suffering. Anyone not feeling that? Okay, so we're all there. We're feeling a new suffering every day. Because we need to. It's part of this world. It's part of the lessons we need to learn. And Krishna is here to help us overcome these lessons. He's God. He's actually the one manifesting these lessons for us. But his pastimes are so wonderful that he'll teach us through his own actions and activities how to overcome these lessons. And the lesson of Kali is malice. Malintent, evil intentions towards others. And what's the root of that is actually envy. Envy. We're envious of someone else's success or envious of something about someone else, and we want to try and knock that person down. So maybe we talk some smack on them. Maybe we try and sabotage them. Maybe worse, we actually try and harm them physically or mentally, abuse them. So Kali is the personification of malice, and his whole life it was explained where he was in his past life. And actually the reason one gets a serpent's body is actually that one is so full of envy and anger and evil intentions towards others. So Kali was gifted that body. But luckily, after Krishna danced upon him for about an hour or so, and kicked all the poison out of him, he vomited all the poison. Now what was left was just blood. Hey, Megan, welcome. We're talking about some ancient, cool pastimes here. So come on in, please take a seat. Cool, cool. Everyone make room for Megan and give her a big welcome. So, all right, so we're talking about the pastimes of Krishna and how they also have symbological and allegorical meaning to your life. Yes, they literally happen. This is spoken that this literally happened when the avatar Krishna, or at least avatar, actually, if we know Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand that he's the source of all avatars. But at the very least, what's understood by all of the, you could say, studiers of the Vedas is that Krishna was this wonderful avatar. But if you go through his pastimes, each has a wonderful lesson. And so Kaliya's lesson was to not have evil intentions unto others, lest you will be kicked by God, quite literally, with artistic dancing upon your head, vomiting out all of your poison, all of your venom, and evil intentions towards others. But what was left of Kaliya after Krishna quite literally kicked all the poison out of him was that he began vomiting his own blood. And at that point, luckily he had he was fortunate because even though he wasn't that wonderful himself, he had some very pious wives. He had good wives. Yes, back then you could have multiple wives. Now that would never work. Even in India it doesn't work anymore. But yeah, it would never work in today's age. He's very, very much too complicated. I do know someone, he's a nice guy, and you know someone with 2 wives, and I really respect. I'm like, wow, you do it. That's wonderful. A devotee, actually. But to me, that is such a rare thing. I've never seen it work anywhere else. So I definitely won't be trying that myself. But Kaliya had multiple wives. If you somehow got her permission, but I don't think so. But anyway, no, definitely not. So anyway, Kaliya had multiple wives. Kaliya had multiple wives, and they started praying. They saw that Kaliya had actually, instead of having evil intentions towards God himself, towards Krishna, he actually began to realize that he was completely outmatched, and he began to feel very sorry and repentant for his evil actions. And that's when they begged Krishna, and they had really beautiful prayers. And it's mentioned in this Krishna book here, which I'm drawing these pastimes. Ooh, that would be bad. Please don't fall. Okay. Good enough. It's mentioned in this Krishna book here, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the ancient scripture from which this is based off of. So, without further ado, we're going to get into the next pastime today. After this happened, and Krishna actually, he was the only demon in the Krishna Leela pastimes that he didn't kill. Krishna normally kills the demonic. Those who are quite wicked and go against God, they usually get killed. That's usually the way. But at least in Krishna's Leelas. Now we see the most recent.
It's also said, I'm just adding to that.
What's
so
that?
Anyone who is killed by Krishna does get liberated.
Yes.
So,
At the very least, they get
it's a
mukti.
blessing that Krishna is giving them.
Yes, yes, this is very true. And this was watched multiple times in other demons, including Aga. It was witnessed that his soul actually got liberated into Krishna's own body. But actually, this is said to be also a punishment for being demonic, because liberation is actually a very low spiritual place. Liberation is freedom from all suffering. Does that sound good to anyone? It's called mukti. It's the 4th purushartha, the goal of, you could say, the goal of dharma, kama, artha, and then moksha. And then but there's a 5th goal actually, and that's called bhakti. And that's actually service to the Lord. And that's actually in the Bhagavatam and other Vedantic scriptures that this is the highest goal. So bhakti is what? Love unto God. Actually, in the West, there was a great bhakti yoga teacher, and he was actually said to be the son of God, and a very, very, very powerful being who brought salvation to many. What is his name? Does anyone know? Yeah, Jesus, right? Yes. Teaching in his first 2 commandments are what?
Well, that was God's commandments.
Well, God had 10
Like
commandments.
like Moses had them.
Yes, Moses gave 10, but then actually a little biblical.
Jesus had 10.
No, Jesus gave 2 of the most important, which was the first commandment, to love God with all your heart, strength, soul, words, and mind. And the second, to love one another as you love yourself. But he was teaching love. Love for who? Love for God. That's Bhakti Yoga. That's exactly what Krishna is teaching. That's the summum bonum of Bhagavad Gita. The summum bonum of all these teachings in the Bhagavatam. Actually, anyone who's participating in Krishna's pastimes, they have perfected love of God, and that's what that looks like. They get to actually experience pastimes with the Lord in the spiritual abode. What makes this tradition so special is that you get to actually peer into, in the Judeo-Christian scriptures, including Islam, you get like this all-powerful, almighty, all-wonderful God who's created everything. But there's really a very vague understanding. He's always beyond the clouds, always out of reach. And maybe if you're lucky, he'll send a prophet or a Messiah or his son. But he's kind of always out of reach. Or you'll see him when you get to heaven, or you'll meet him then, maybe. Maybe if you go through his son or a representative. But in the Vedic tradition, which is far, far older, from which yoga and all these many wonderful things come from, we actually find that God is actually described. Where his kingdom is described, the layers and tiers of his kingdom, the type of mood you'll have to be in to serve a certain aspect of him in his kingdom, more confidential aspects of him. And Krishna is actually the most confidential aspect of him. Said to be in the highest tiers of the kingdom of God is actually these wonderful, very intimate and sweet pastimes in a forest-like paradise named Vrindavan. So even God actually, it's not said that he makes you wait till the highest kingdom to experience it. Actually, by just hearing about the pastimes, you can actually enter into them now. And that's what we're trying to do a little bit here. And we're learning the lessons that all of the other wonderful devotees also got to experience in the midst of the pastimes. So anyway, this is a little far out. I know a couple of you are brand new. If you are brand new, don't worry. That's, we can try and explain as much, but start from the very beginning and work our way up. But right now we'll just try and continue on with the pastimes. And yeah, just see if you can take something positive from it. That's my recommendation. So, after Kaliya was banished and he was sent out of this lake, and he was promised, remember he went there because he was afraid of a great demigod named Garuda, who was trying to punish him for his envious actions towards him a long time ago. He was freed from that curse that Garuda would kill him, and he was given permission, thanks to the begging of his wives, to have mercy on him. And the Lord had mercy and did not kill him. So next, though, all of the residents of Vrindavan, they all ran out to the forest where Krishna, they all heard about Krishna getting in this tangle with the serpent. So they all ran out to the forest, and they were all along the sidelines, not the forest, of the lake, and they're all peering in. And they decided, because it's late now, we should set up camp for the night and we should sleep out here. But lo and behold, wouldn't you know, that a great forest fire had actually come at that very time. And a forest fire actually surrounded all of them. So naturally, all the devotees of Krishna, when they get in trouble, what do you think they do?
Call out for Krishna.
Yeah, they simply call. They don't know anything else other than Krishna. So they call out to Krishna to please save them from this terrible forest fire, and it looked very grim. The flames were surrounding them on all sides, and so on. The calves were in danger, because remember, they're cow herders. They have a bunch of calves and cows, and they like to play in the forests. And there was a great forest fire. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says here, the formidable forest fire, the form of quarrel amongst Vaishnava Sampradayas, was swallowed by the Lord in order to protect the land of Braj. So what he actually did, there was 2 forest fires in Krishna's pastimes. We'll talk about them both today, because they happened kind of close to each other. But what Krishna did is he actually, he swallowed the forest fire, which is not really possible for an ordinary person to do. This is, like I said, you may notice this seems to be fable, fairy tale, something of legends. How can this happen? For an ordinary person, you'd be right. There's no way I can go outside and swallow a forest fire. I will get absolutely burned to a crisp, nor can most of you. At least I think. Who knows what kind of type of capabilities you all have here. But Krishna could do these things. And also there was symbology here as well. The forest fire was swallowed by the Lord in order to protect the land of Braj. And also, it's said in the Vaishnava Sampradayas, those who they take to this one-formed Vishnu worship or Vaishnava worship. In India, they all have united in the 4 different Sampradayas. There's 4 traditions of the Sampradayas, and they've all actually united in respecting each other and loving each other. Yes, they disagree with each other in many different ways. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this is the great obstacle is to quarrel amongst the Sampradayas, to quarrel amongst your own brothers. That could also be in other monotheistic religions. We all believe in, Christianity, they believe in one God. Islam, they believe in one God. Judaism, they believe in one God. And then there's hundreds of other religions that believe in one God. And yet they all fight with each other like cats and dogs, in their supposed Holy Land. And Israel is the Holy Land, and they fight each other to the death in these Holy Lands over the way that the one God wants them to worship. But I can tell you the one way that the one God does not want them to worship, by killing each other. That's not very worshipable. But anyway, this is actually what the forest fire can represent in your life. This vicious set of disagreements. I mean, we go out on the street all the time to try and share teachings of peace and love for God. That's what this is about. And wouldn't you know, my probably toughest people who give me the hardest times are people who believe in God. I've had the Islamic faith. I've had a lot of times Christian faith, because that's what is most popular in this country. But they give me the hardest time on the street. What are you doing? You're going to hell, something like that. And I'm like, well, thank you. I'm not exactly sure that it says like that, nor did Jesus say like that, but I know you certainly think so. But this is the great forest fire, to actually blaspheme other spiritual people for the sake of thinking yours is necessarily the only way. And maybe you have some evidence that the way you're practicing is the only way. But still, you should try and see. You should love one another as you would not want others to love you. So this is a main teaching in all of these. This is called the golden rule in all of the great religions. So there was this forest fire, and Krishna, he protected everyone from this forest fire. And I mentioned the symbology. So naturally, all the residents of Vrindavan, they were very happy to see like this. Are you hiding from Nadia? I thought you were whispering something to me. Peter, you have a question?
Where was this place located that the forest fire happened?
This is in Vraj, Vrindavan. Actually, you can go there.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, we're going there next February, and we're going to take a group here. Maybe Michael will join us, and maybe a few others. If you want, you save up and you can come to India with us. And we'll take you exactly where it happened if you'd like.
Cool.
Yeah. But there's 12 forests in Vrindavan, so one of the forests in Vrindavan. Just so you know, when Krishna comes and performs pastimes in this world, like I said, Krishna is said to be an avatar. An avatar means, quite literally in Sanskrit, one who descends from above. Actually, from Christian theology, Jesus would fit the definition of an avatar, one who's coming from the higher abode, coming down to the lower abode to share love. Just coming down is what avatar means. But so Krishna is said to be an avatar, but also when he comes, he also expands a portion of his spiritual kingdom with him. And actually that's still there today. You can go to the Vrindavan, and it's a very, very amazing spiritual place. If you ever get a chance to go to India, the whole of India is quite spiritual. On every corner of the USA, you'll find bars and different restaurants and different facilities for sinful activities. But in India, it's quite different. On every corner, you find different temples, different pillars of worship, places of worship, and that's the culture. We go to our Guru Maharaj's temple. He built a temple in Madhya Pradesh, his village hometown, and we love the Indian population. There's a piety, a sweetness to Indians that us in the West we weren't exactly born with. Some of us, I've met some like Mennonites and Amish, those really sheltered Western people who really, they have like such a sweetness to them. But most of us are corrupted from like almost day one in the U.S. It's happening in India too, unfortunately. We go there. Even I started going there in 2020, and by the time I last was there earlier this year in 2024, it's like rapidly changing more and more and more to try and adopt these Western ways, which are ultimately, from my point of view, unbecoming of the wonderful charm that India naturally held for many years. But anyway, yeah, it's Kali Yuga, or the Age of Darkness. It's going to envelop the world, unfortunately. The mass of people are going to become more sinful. And the only people who have a chance are said actually to be the ones who call upon the name of God. This is mentioned in the Bible, in Psalms. He who calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. In our tradition, you heard us doing kirtan, or you did kirtan with us. This is actually said to be in Kali Yuga, the Yuga Dharma. We were talking a lot about Dharma today. The Dharma of this age is simply to call upon the names of the Lord. Easiest way. But it's actually, there are many processes of worshiping the Lord. But the most prime principal ones are actually you're doing right now, called Shravan, hearing. You should hear about the Lord. And then the next is Kirtan, is sharing about the Lord. When we call the name of the Lord, we're sharing the name of the Lord with all around us. So you can share the name of the Lord, you can share His pastimes, could share His teachings. This is said to be the Yuga Dharma of this age. And then by doing these two, the wonderful jewel of Smarana, you'll actually remember the Lord. And that's said what we need to do at the time of death. Instead of focusing on everything that's going wrong with our body, or all the things we're going to lose in this world, which is what most do at the time of death, to remember the Lord at the time of death is said to be the best, very, very, very best thing. And in this life, we train ourselves to try and remember the Lord now, because we're all going to die eventually. Is it a secret to anyone that we're going to die? Oh, wow. Do we ever think about it? Wow.
I think theoretically you know.
Yeah.
If you really realize you're going to die.
Yeah, intellectually we know. Actually, in the Mahabharata, there was a discourse between Dharmaraj, who is Yudhisthira, and the god of Dharma himself, Yamaraj. He's the god of death, the ultimate. He brings justice. Whatever you get whatever you've done in life will dictate your justice at death. So he had a conversation with Yudhisthira, and he was testing Yudhisthira, and he wanted to hear his answers. And he said, "What is the most amazing thing?" And Yudhisthira replied, "The most amazing thing is that every living entity sees death at every level. They watch their grandparents die, their fathers die, and everything die around them. And yet they never think it's going to happen to them." This is actually the most amazing thing. We watch death everywhere. Whether it's a deer on the side of the road. I watched, it was pretty wild. I watched a bug fly into the propane flame on the stove last night, and it just incinerated into flames. I was like, holy crap, Even last night I thought I killed a bat. A bat was actually, I know you guys were here, all the Airbnbs are like, what, there's a bat in the house? There was a bat in the house. Yes, the bat ended up flying, and I swatted it. I tried to catch it with my chudder the night before, but this time I couldn't do it anymore. The time for kindness was over. It had to be left. So I swatted it with the broom, and it fell over there on that blue thing over there. And then I actually put the broom on top of it, and my wife got a glove, and I was able to pick it up, and it was still very much alive. And I opened the door, threw it out, and it flew off into the night. But anyway, I don't even know why I told you that. But I actually thought I might have killed it. I hit it pretty hard, I had to give it a good swing to try and knock it out of commission so I could grab it. But anyway, it all lived. It was good. But death is around the corner at every step. So we know this. So it is in our best intention to try and hear about God, to call upon the name of God, and to remember God. And actually, only in the Vedic canon can you actually in-depth understand God, his personality, what he looks like, what his associates do, what you would do in heaven. You know, I often hear times many people, what is it? I've heard people, and people in the West, we're very cute with our ideas of death. We're very cute. You go to like a funeral, and I've heard people, literally like friends I went to high school with and things like that, you know, someone they love dies, and they post on Facebook and like, you know, I know you're up there in heaven having a good old cheeseburger and a nice cold beer. I was thinking, like, that's what you think, like heaven, like what heaven's got to offer, you know? And then in the West, we're taught, like, yeah, it's anything you want. Maybe. I mean, maybe. I can't imagine in heaven that what would be on the menu is they're still murdering animals up in heaven. Like, oh yeah, I want a murdered animal for food. They probably have something far better than that. And also intoxication, which is mind-altering stuff. I don't know if you'd have the right body where you'd even want to have mind-altering stuff. But anyway, this is what people, you know, this is like people's idea of heaven is whatever they want. You know, but actually in the Vedic canon, it's described what heaven is like, what the activities of heaven are, the different many tiers of heaven. There's so much information actually given, and it's not up for like, maybe it's like this, and just wishful thinking. You can actually have a very detailed description of what it's like, and you can actually have an opinion of where you'd like to go in heaven, depending on what you're attracted to. And there are forms of worship that will take you to where you'd like to go in this heavenly abode. So anyway, like this, we love hearing about the pastimes of Krishna, and we're very interested in giving people the opportunity to hear about God's wonderful form and pastime and activities as Krishna. So we like to share. So this was the forest fire, and it represented the quarrel amongst Vaishnava Sampradayas, at least in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life. Let me see. Well, also, it's mentioned the 11th obstacle. It talked about different obstacles. We talked about Kaliya's obstacle was malice. And this is the obstacle in your heart. What's stopping you from going from a place of having some faith in God? We have many like wicked qualities and vices, right? You've heard of in Christianity or Judeo-Christian, it's the 7 deadly sins. We have things that are in our way. We want to experience pure love with God, or at least theoretically, but there's qualities about us that aren't letting us. And many religious traditions, they just like to say, well, we're just imperfect, and so I'm okay with that. The Lord will save me eventually. Are you sure you don't have to do any work on that on your own? In my, maybe not so humble opinion, but in the opinion of the Vedas, is we should work on these things. But actually, to their credit, actually you're not going to succeed on your own. It's done through devotion to God, and God will actually allow the purification to happen. Krishna will allow the purification to happen. But one of those processes is just hearing about these wonderful qualities. So by hearing the pastime of Krishna and Kaliya, one could have the realization not to have malintent towards others, have malice towards others. Now to hear about the forest fire, the obstacle is sectarianism. Oh, my tradition is the best, yours is not good, like this, sectarianism, which takes the shape of the forest fire. Due to sectarianism, a person cannot accept anyone outside of his own group as a Vaishnava or a devotee of the Lord, and as a result he faces many obstacles in finding a guru, a teacher, and associating with devotees. Therefore, extinguishing the forest fire is most important. You're seeing this. Churches, mosques, temples are becoming emptier and emptier and emptier in this age. Why? Because of sectarianism. They say it's only like this, and this is, you know, it's only like this, but are they sure? Have they done all of the translations?
Are you sure from Aramaic to Greek to English by the time you got it, touched by the government of England in the 16th century and they made that whole book or whatever on, so many things like that. Are you sure that it's only like this or it's only like that? I don't think we should be so sure. God is universal. The Eskimos can also approach God, even though they may have never heard about Krishna or Jesus or Muhammad or any of the Judeo, the prophets in the Torah. Actually, all of the world's main religions, if you look on a giant map of the world, all of the main religions of the world are in like some little circle in Israel, where they all fight. That's where all the main religions they stem from, just like a little dot on the world. But the Lord is the God of everyone. The Jewish name for God is Adonai. Adonai is the Lord of the universe. That same, Jagannath. The Lord, that's what the name Jagannath means. He's the Lord of everybody. Not just this planet. All of the planets. All of the different universes. So we should not be sectarian. We should not think, like for instance, we had my parents here last week, and we had my wife's grandmother here 2 days ago. I think, 3 days ago? Something like that. On Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, I think she was here. But what we like to do with them is to focus on the good things, that every religion is doing many good things, actually. So okay, maybe they don't want to necessarily hear about Krishna, or they don't trust that would be, or they have some position that, well, no, I can only do like this. And we said, that's fine. That's great, actually. You love God. I just want to keep seeing you put God more in the center in your life. That's all. So we encourage them. So sometimes we go out, we do our chanting, we chant the names of God many times throughout the day. And we invited her grandmother, who's Catholic. You want to come out and do the rosary with us? We're going on a walk. She didn't want to, but we were encouraging her. Please, yeah, do your part. So like this, we should not be sectarian, including religions, but especially in your own religion. I've seen it in this Krishna consciousness movement, unfortunately, so much. I've done it actually. I got very hyped up about how I was practicing in the beginning. And I was like, well, you guys are practicing like that over there. And I found myself distancing and being a bit sectarian and driving certain people away and driving myself away from different types of devotees who practice in a certain way. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is assuring this is a huge obstacle and actually a great forest fire which could destroy everything in our spiritual practices. So,
In that book, do you have the quote by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that talks about when he's in the church? No?
it's not in this book, but I know the quote you're talking about no matter what religious practice you see, the essence is that Bhaktivinoda Thakur felt that we should be very appreciative of the God that we love and see how in this foreign understanding, I don't understand how they worship God, but I'm so happy to see Him being worshipped in this way as well. We should appreciate other religions and appreciate others worshiping and loving God instead of being like, I don't like the way they worship God, or they worship God wrong, or things like this. Yes, there may actually be certain fundamental issues that are ultimately going to hold them back if they are doing, let's say, perverted forms of worship. That does exist. But,
I'm actually talking about the quote that he's in a church, and he's saying, this isn't the form that I worship in.
yes.
But I would like to see the Lord, how I see Him, and see how they're worshiping Him, and find like God within my heart, and try and see Him in that way, and it actually will deepen my faith. Like going back to the Catholic Church after finding Krishna consciousness, I actually felt like I had some type of connection. Not that it was like, oh, now I'm going to come here, because it wasn't like why I connected. It was just like, now, the songs like actually like felt like something.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of summed it up. I tried to paraphrase that exact quote you just said.
I know,
But
I
you
thought
did-
it was really
no, that's the duty of the wife, is to fine tune whatever the husband is doing. You'll all learn one day. You'll all learn this firsthand one day. And if you're humble, you can take it, and if you're not, it'll be a huge ego check to you. So anyway, so that is the obstacle with the forest fires, and we're going to come back to the forest fires because there's always. And remember, if we are sectarian, we will face many obstacles in finding a guru, proper teacher for ourselves. And the guru can change. It's not that you always have one guru. There may be one prominent guru. But actually, anybody giving you instruction, at least as per the Bhagavatam, and even our Guru Parampara, if you look on the altar, we have 5 personalities. And we say this is the lineage of gurus. But they weren't all each other's gurus, actually. That's the common misconception. Like, for instance, the guy in the middle and the guy to the right of him, Gorkishore Das Babaji and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they were actually friends. They were contemporaries. And if you see Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose book we're reading from, Krishna Samhita, and the guru on all the way to the right, Jagannath Das Babaji, he didn't initiate him. That was someone he found later in his life who was an instructing guru to him. But he was so prominent in his life that he considered him his foremost guru, like this. So actually, if we are sectarian in our ways of worship, if we're very sectarian, we might miss out on a real teacher who can actually show us the way. Actually, I've heard very interestingly that when you translate out, there's a very common verse. I probably know it better than most people because I hear it very regularly, especially if I'm out on the street and we're doing the Harinams. And it's, is it John 4:16? Does that sound familiar to anyone? John 4:16 in the Bible. It's, I am the way, the truth, and the life. My father recited this at our Vedic wedding. It's very nice. And I am the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except through me. So that's, oftentimes that is a very sectarian approach to why someone else's religion might be nonsense. I saw that in my own, I grew up Christian, and I saw that in the Catholic religion and other forms of Christianity I practiced. And I always felt a little discouraged also when, I personally saw my dad, I hope he's not listening, but personally saw my dad kind of, he's definitely not, but kind of weaponized that in such a way that always made me feel a little uncomfortable. But if you actually look at the Greek and you actually translate everything out, we get just the English, but if you actually translate everything out from the Greek to the Aramaic, there's context and there's tenses from which words are spoken. So from what I've heard, at least, is that the context of that Jesus was speaking to the disciples was speaking to them personally when saying that verse. Not that he was speaking to everyone for the rest of eternity when he was telling that to his disciples, but he was telling them that I'm the way, the truth, the life, and none of you are going to come to the Father except through me. And that was very likely the case. He was the only enlightened soul in that portion of the world. By far. It didn't seem like there was anyone else. Definitely not at that time. It's very rare. He's quite literally said to be the Son of God. So, but if we take that, and then we use that for the rest of eternity, and now that incarnation of the Lord 2,000 years ago, even if Jesus did come back, let's say he does, he's said to come back soon. I hear a lot of people tell me he's coming back soon. I would welcome it. I think it would be wonderful if Jesus came back soon. I'd be, wow. Even if he would be mad at me, I would hopefully ask for forgiveness, and I'd be like, you know what? I'm glad you're back. But if he did come back, I think that would be splendid. But we may not recognize him. We may think, well, the book said like this, it's got to be like this, and then who knows? We might try and put him on a cross again or something like that. But this time, I don't think he's playing games when he comes back. That's what's said. I think he said to really chastise us if he comes back again. Actually, similar story in the end of the Bhagavatam. It says in the final incarnation of Vishnu, He's supposed to come exactly like Jesus is predicted to come, but this was thousands of years earlier, on a white horse with a sword in hand, ready to kill all of the miscreants. It's a very interesting parallel there between Western and Eastern religions. But anyway, sectarianism is bad. Don't let sectarianism destroy your love for other living entities, and also be able to appreciate the love for God that other people have, even if it's not exactly the love of God that you were brought up with. Because actually, if we search our own hearts, we're going to find some really icky stuff in there. We're going to find some stuff that isn't so pure, isn't so fully pure. It's going to be any sincere person who scans their heart is going to find something that they're a little ashamed of in there, and that's healthy. If you think that you're perfect and that you feel that the Lord has put you in this world dealing with the sufferings and punishments of this world, I don't know, I think you should reevaluate, because the reason we're here is to learn lessons and undergo a little bit of you could say like a punishment that this type of world offers, and a purification. So anyway, the next pastime is the pastime of Pralambasura. So Pralamba is another, most of the demons we've talked about before were killed by Krishna. But there was one other person who also kills demons. Does anyone remember? Yes, Balaram. The gentleman on the left in the center of the altar, that's Nityanandaram. And he is the most recent incarnation of Balaram. So Balaram is Krishna's best friend, brother. When Krishna comes, Balaram has got to come too. And so they perform pastimes together, and they do many things together. So this one is going to be for Balaram. So, like we mentioned, in the kingdom of Vraj, well, I don't like to say kingdom, in the forest of Vraj, the paradise of Vraj, where God and all his associates play. Actually, they play all kinds of fun games. It's described in here, some of the games they like to play. And I thought it was cute, so I want to share some of the games. I remember one was, they were always playing hide and seek with the boyfriends, jumping or fighting with one another. They would chant and dance, and they would remark, and they would do animal invitations. They would play blind man's buff or bluff. What is that, right? That's when you like blindfold yourself and everyone is like looking after each other. So these are actually wonderful games that they played in ancient times when Krishna was on the planet over 5,000 years ago. And also, but it said that this is what they play in like the heavenly worlds. You can play these fun games, and even the Lord will play with you. So they would play these games, but remember we were talking about that Krishna came here. One of the reasons he came here was to punish Kamsa, because Kamsa was doing very many wicked things in this world, including to Krishna's seeming biological mother, Devaki. But Kamsa, when he got word that, just like when Herod got word that Jesus was born, he sent out to kill all the infants. Kamsa did something similar. But Krishna escaped every attempt that Kamsa sent, and he had many powerful demonic friends who had mystic abilities, and they were like assassins, and they would all come to Krishna in different ways to try and kill him, and he would defeat them one after one. So one of his friends was called Pralamba. And Pralamba was a very ferocious, demonic personality. But all of these demons, they would like to shapeshift into different forms to try and blend in. They knew Krishna must be dangerous. He keeps killing all of my friends. But they all thought that maybe they could do it. They could be the one to kill him. So Pralamba thought, I'll go like a cowherd boy, and I'll play games with the cowherd boys. There was like literally thousands of cowherd boys in this paradise village of Rudge, and they would all play games together. So he decided, I'll dress up like a boy and I'll play games, and I'll see if I can find an opportunity to kill Krishna when he's not paying attention. Obviously they didn't realize that this is God, but they felt like, okay, let me try. So Pralamba went, and it said that he went and tried to kill Krishna, but he thought, okay, let me play games with them and I'll get an opportunity. So what ended up happening is when one group was on Balaram's team and one group was on Krishna's team. And I think they had a wrestling match. They did wrestling. But the losers of the match had to carry the winners on their shoulders. That was it. So imagine we all played a game here, and if you lost, then you got to carry me on your shoulders for like the next 20 minutes or something like that. So that actually happened, and Balaram's team won, and Pralamba was on Krishna's team. He wanted to be on Krishna's team because he was a little fearful of Krishna. But he also knew the prowess of Balaram. So Pralamba had to carry Balaram. And Krishna and Balaram knew exactly what was going on. It's not like they were surprised by the demon. But they like to just kind of, let them play their tricks and see what happens. And so Pralamba is carrying Balaram, and they're all carrying them around. They're having fun. And Pralamba thought, well, let me go and take Balaram off to the side, and I will dispose of him shortly. And then I'll come and I'll find a way to kill Krishna. That was his thought. So what ended up happening is he took Balaram off to the side, and Balaram's kind of saying, hey, where are you going? What are we doing? Like this. But he kept going, and he took him into a nearby forest. And all of a sudden, Pralamba started, maybe there's a picture. This is the exact picture. I don't know if you guys can see. Like this. It's in this book. But Pralamba actually started taking a very large demonic form, Rakshasa-like form with fangs and teeth, claws. And Balaram became quite astounded to see that this little boy is now becoming like a giant ogre-like demon. But Balaram is very, infinitely strong. So he just takes his fist and he just crushes it into Pralamba's head. And actually his head split open and he just dropped dead and bled out on the ground. Pretty wild pastimes. But we'll go back to what is some allegorical meaning to this. One, who is Balaram? He's the principle of what? We talked about this before. The Guru, yes. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, the impersonalists desire to merge the soul in the impersonal Brahman. In other words, searching for the liberation of complete merging is the defect of stealing the self, because there is no happiness in this state. There's a lot of religious systems that believe God is impersonal. Even though we have a personality, they believe God is beyond personality. But actually, personality is beyond that which has no personality. So that is the one flaw of the many impersonal paths out there. Neither the living entity nor the Lord gain anything from this. If one believes the impersonalist philosophy, then he must accept this material world as false. One then denounces Brahman as indifferent and gradually develops doubts about the basis of Brahman. Brahman is the underlying spiritual energy of all things. If one deeply discusses this topic, then he is compelled to accept meaningless nescience, or the opposite of science, falsities, and non-existence of the living entities. Thus all of mankind's endeavors and considerations become meaningless. Sometimes this philosophy enters amongst the Vaishnavas in the form of Pralambasura, to spread anarthas in the form of stealing the self. This is the 12th obstacle in the Vaishnava science of love. So this is kind of Pralamba's fault, that he wanted to infiltrate the devotees of the Lord with something that was quite wicked. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur compares it to Buddhist philosophy, the Mayavad philosophy, these atheistic philosophies, or the philosophy that we're all God and let's just merge back into God. This is all a falsity altogether. There's many philosophies like this, but actually this is a great obstacle It makes life meaningless. It would literally make life meaningless. If we're all just an illusion, we're all just God living through an illusion right now, we should just stop acting altogether. There's literally no purpose to life anymore, if this is the truth. But there is a deeper meaning to life. There's absolutely a deeper meaning to life. Does everyone want to agree there has to be a deeper meaning to life? Yes, this is so important to find meaning in life. So we must understand there is a personal God, and there is a personal relationship between you and the Lord. And that this is far higher than any type of endeavor to merge into God. And the only reason one would want to merge into God is actually at the very subtle root is envy of God. Because God is said to be the ultimate enjoyer, and you are so conditioned to want to control and ultimate controller, and you're so conditioned to want to control everything and enjoy everything for your own. And when you realize you can't do that, your last snare is like, well, maybe I can merge and become the Lord too. And that's what the impersonal philosophy is all about. And actually even Buddhism, which is the opposite of that, where everything is nothingness, and we're all merging back into nothingness. Not to say there's not something good about these things. There is some good practices in there. But these ideologies are so dangerous and blasphemous, actually, to the Lord. So this is actually said to be Pralamba's representation, is trying to corrupt the pure devotional groups who have pure devotion to the Lord. And this sneaks in there in the guise of religion all the time. Actually, if you look at much of Indian religion, this is hiding around the corner of most gurus, is this impersonal philosophy. We have to be very careful. Even in this very personal tradition, it's been seen that leaders come out to have very impersonal beliefs in philosophy. Or ahangrahopasana, wanting to be the Lord. Or even thinking they are the Lord's most intimate devotee. So this is a little kind of complex semantics, so I won't go any further on this, and I'm not even educated on this. So then again, Pralamba was killed, and of course, every time a demon was killed, all the cowherd boys of Braj, they're cheering, they're laughing, they're having fun, and they're amazed to watch Krishna and Balaram perform their pastimes with them, and they're so charmed and happy. So, what ended up happening, though, is again, when they were entering the forest after this happened, they lost track of the cows. But they had saw it, because it was the hot time of the year, it was the dry season. And then actually forest fires are kind of common during this dry season. So another forest fire had come, wouldn't you know? And so again, remember, the forest fire is represented by sectarianism. We have to be very careful with this in our own life. We don't want forest fires in our own life. But the forest fires came again to Krishna and Balaram. And ultimately what ended up happening was it surrounded all of the boys and their cows, and it actually looked like they were finished. There was no way out. So they all prayed to Krishna like they do always. And when they prayed to Krishna, Krishna said, just close your eyes and have faith. So they all actually did. They had faith in Krishna. So they all closed their eyes and they prayed and they had faith. And Krishna again swallowed the whole forest fire. And this again could be symbolic. If we really have faith in Krishna to reveal himself to us, I promise you he'll do this. I actually, one time earlier in my life, I was an atheist, believe it or not. It was a very dark time of my life. I was very atheistic, and I was, I thought I for sure am this body, and the only meaning of life is to give this body as much pleasure as possible. That was my credo to life. How can I give this body and mind as much pleasure as possible? So my Christian cousin Dave, he was really disappointed to see me go from being a good Christian boy to being an atheist. I was like an altar boy in church. I had a dress, and I carried the cross and the candles, and I was doing everything that my parents told me to do and the priests were telling me to do. But then at one point, actually I would attribute it a lot to, one, I wasn't really taught too much depth in my religion growing up. But then two, the academia teaches atheism. Science, what the academia is teaching both at the college, post-college, and before college levels is all atheistic knowledge. So it teaches us like this, and so I was actually convinced away from spiritual knowledge. But at one point, I was an atheist for a few years, and I was a hedonist, meaning as much pleasure, as much sex, drugs, and rock and roll as I can have in the world, that's what I'm going to do. This is the ultimate meaning I can find out of life. This was my college years. But ultimately, my cousin, he actually knew. He knew God. He knew God existed, and he was blessed by God. He's still blessed by God. And he's coming from the Christian lens. But, he has a very strong faith in God, and I would never try and convince him anything else of the sort. Even though at that time I was having a debate with him on why atheism was better than religionism. So we debated for 2 hours, and then he got me with one question. He's like, well, okay, we're not going to be able to prove to each other. I say there is a God for this reason, but you're looking for proof in this way, and we're never going to be able to satisfy each other. But when he said, if you believe there's a God, wouldn't you want him to exist? And I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, to me, God was someone who just grants all your wishes. He's like a magic cloud genie who's like, anything that you want, God is fulfilling that. That was my relationship with God. I hope this doesn't sting anyone. It's like, oh man, I thought God was like that to me too. He's the wish granter. No, that's a very superficial understanding of God. But that's what I was grown up with. And so anyway, I was like, yeah, that would be great if God existed and he could fulfill all of my desires. But I don't believe that's the case. And he's like, well, you know what? It can't hurt if you just say, just call out to God and say, God, if you're real, show me. So I was, he kind of got me there. As an atheist, you have nothing to lose. If you don't believe God is real, you maybe lose a few seconds and maybe the argument will end. So that's what I thought. All right. I said, God, if you're real, show me. And I was a little facetious, a little condescending. But I actually said that. And actually later that year, I had a drug-induced but near-death experience that absolutely confirmed to me that God is real, that Spirit is real, and that I indeed am not my body, and I can leave this body, and so can all of you, and you all will at one point. So it makes you completely shift gears if you're fortunate enough, or maybe unfortunate, because it's traumatizing too to have such an experience. But if you do have that experience, if you are seeking, the Lord can reveal himself to you. But he'll only reveal himself to you if you want him to reveal himself to you. He's reserved. He doesn't have to reveal himself to you. He's beyond your mundane vision. You see this all the time, did you ever see those memes on the internet? And it says, when you see it, you're going to freak out. Right? And you're scanning the picture and where is it? What is this thing they're talking about in the meme? Am I the only one who does that? No one else has done that on the internet before? You've had to have done it before.
Scan for an image?
It says when you see it, you never saw those memes when you see it?
Usually they're trolling you. There's nothing there. Usually.
Sometimes that's happened, but there's been plenty of times where you have seen it and there's a thing. But actually that, God is like that. He's everywhere, in all things. And yet, without you having the proper vision or angle of vision to see it, you'll never be able to see it with how you're looking at it. But if you just change your angle a little bit, you'll easily be able to see it. It's in science. It can be found in science. It can be found in every type of religion. It can be found in meditation. It can be found in prayer. You can be found in Scripture. It can be found from hearing about God from others. There's so many ways to understand God. At least a little more. You'll never be able to completely understand God. He's far beyond that. But you will be able to realize God to a certain degree. So I know I went a little off track with that, but that's kind of an important aspect of why we're here, that there is indeed a spiritual being. There's a spiritual existence. You're a spiritual being, and you have a relationship with God. And ultimately, this is just a fleshy vehicle. This isn't you. You know how I know this isn't you? Tanmai, you have this nice beard right now in this phase of your life. But when you were 5 years old, did you look like this? No. But were you the same person? Yes.
That good question.
Yeah, it could be a trick question. Depends how you define what you are as a person.
Who is Tanmay? Tanmay is the one who has seen the young Tanmay. Tanmay is the one who has seen this Tanmay. And Tanmay will be the one who is seeing the old Tanmay as well.
Just the
That
observer.
observer is
Just-
always that.
Yeah.
And who sees all the phases of that. That means that you are not the body and the mind. You're the observer who looks things all this over the world.
Yes, yes. So Piyush put it nicely. But I would say, just to slightly tinker Piyush's thing, is that you're even beyond the name Tanmay as
Yes.
well. Yeah, Tanmay is an identification given to your body by your parents, most likely. Or maybe something you've given to yourself or a guru gave to you. But in eternity, you're not necessarily Tanmay. Wherever you were before this body, you weren't Tanmay. Wherever you go after, you probably will not be Tanmay. You might be Tanmay. Who knows what's looking for you. But you indeed are the observer of this. You indeed are, as a soul, are watching the experiences of the body change, and the body's completely changing. One day your body will look something like Tejas's body back there. Yeah. So and he looks great for his age, but still it's not going to stop. We're all aging, and it's an inevitable part of life. And then eventually the body's got to go. This body's going to be so old and broken that it better go, and you better get a new body, or you better get a new form of existence, because this one's going to be out of luck. It's out of service. So, but you will be the same. You'll be the same observer, the same witness of the experience of life. And that's actually reality. There's a real you behind all this. And that real you has a relationship with God, has a relationship with the eternal being who's behind this whole system of, you could say, this prison world. Birth, death, disease, old age. Everyone has to deal with these trials. We're all standing trial in this world. And from the Christian lens, we're all carrying our cross. You know, that's their credo. So like this, we should walk the spiritual path, no matter what they say. Also, maybe you have to realize the spiritual path. If you haven't necessarily realized it, contemplate it. And I challenge you all to say what my cousin challenged me to say. Say, God, if you're real. Why not repeat? God, if you're real.
Krishna, if you're real.
All right, Krishna, if you're real,
Krishna,
please show me.
please show me.
God, if you're real, please show me.
Yeah, however you want to say it. Good, Peter. That's good. So that's what we're looking for. You know, he will show you. I promise. But you also have to be willing to see. Don't plug up your ears and close your eyes and be in a blindfold. Actually, be willing, open to look. Maybe God is real. Actually, most likely He is. The order in which everything runs, the amazingness behind everything, it's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle that everything exists the way it does in perfect harmony and order. You should look into what kind of designer, creator could ever create such an interesting and wonderful thing. So anyway, I think I'll end here with the two forest fires. Remember, the two themes of the day were not to let sectarianism ruin your experience of people practicing a similar spiritual tradition to you, or other spiritual practitioners also practicing. Don't view them negatively just because it's different from yours. So sectarianism is a very huge enemy, a forest fire that is endangering our spiritual life and actually endangering the fun and wonder that we could have in service to the Lord. And then the second is these deceptive philosophies that sound all wonderful. grew up a lot in the yoga and new age scene, and there's a lot of things. They speak very flowery, really pretty words. I'm like, yeah, this is really wonderful. But at the end of it, the whole goal is either that it's all nothing, or the second other one, which is like kind of the reverse side of that, is we're all God, and all of this is an illusion. So just do whatever you want. No, there's an actual God, and you are not God. That's okay. It's okay not to be God. It's actually we're all parts and parcels of God, but none of us are the total God. I can control my body, my mind, and a few things in my immediate life, and a few people around me, and that's about it. And you all can do the same. But none of us will ever be able to control the totality of everyone doing everything. Peter, question?
Yeah. It's kind of, speaking of philosophy,
Yes.
it's kind of like an Egyptian saying, like, if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to know yourself.
Yes.
And Jesus said, like, the kingdom of heaven
It's
is within you.
Yes.
And, like, Greek says, know thyself. Like, that's just like a philosophical
Yeah.
saying. What is your take on that?
Well, my take isn't that important, but Krishna's take.
Krishna's take.
Krishna's take is important, and Krishna says in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita that one should become self-realized, meaning know thyself. So Krishna actually, right in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, he talks about the nature of the soul, and that he thought of all the most important knowledge he was going to tell Arjuna, and our Bhagavad Gita's got amazing knowledge. The first thing he wanted to tell him is who he was as a soul, and beyond the body, beyond the mind. So that's the first thing you do have to do. You have to know who you are. And
How do you do that?
well, there is a process. You can read Bhagavad Gita, and it will all be explained how you do that. And then once that jnana sambandha jnana is presented to you, which means sambandha means the relationship between you and God, and jnana is knowledge. Once that knowledge is presented to you, you can start to actually observe it. But actually it'll take some type of study. It takes some type of effort on your part to actually try and realize the self. So some type of sincere endeavor, so I could tell you a very easy way to do that is get a copy of Bhagavad Gita and read it, and it will present to you that sambandha jnana, and then you could actually start to see that in your life. Oh, that is true. Wow. Like, it's like, did you ever watch like one of those, a cartoon or anything where they're trying to steal like a precious gem out of like a museum or something, and they've got all those lasers to guard the gem or something like that? If you imagine life is like that, and there's danger at every step, but all of a sudden someone gives you this sambandha jnana, and you have this wonderful glasses, and you could see where all the lasers are. You've got this special, you can tiptoe around them and crawl through them, and you never have to let the lasers touch you, and you'll never actually be in the many dangers of this world, or you can face the dangers from an enlightened state. So, but that all means you must realize the self. That's the first teaching of Bhagavad Gita. So, yeah, all the other things you've seen in other spiritual traditions, yeah, it's the first teaching that needs to happen as well. I mean, Jesus even says, the truth will set you free. Just by you knowing the truth of who you are, just by you knowing the truth of who God is, you can actually know real freedom. So you can have the special glasses, the divine vision to see the many pitfalls that we're all falling into in this world. Trying to be the controllers and the enjoyers when that's not our nature. We're meant to be the servants of God, not the little mini gods trying to control and enjoy in our life. Like, that's the nature. That's what we have always been taught to do. That's what we always will continue to do unless someone teaches us otherwise. Someone like Jesus, someone like a prophet, a Messiah, a great saint or a sage, or maybe Krishna, God himself. So, like that. So one more question, and then we actually have to end. Go ahead, no.
So Krishna came down like a bunch of times. When was the last recorded time that Krishna came down?
So the last time that Krishna, as Krishna came down.
Yeah, what do you call it, Avatar?
Okay, so well, let me get you a little bit of scope here. We are looking at the universe from our little universe. It's said in the Vedic understanding that there's infinite amounts of universes out there. And it's said that Krishna is always performing pastimes in at least one universe. So the last time Krishna was in our universe, in our little neck of the woods, in our bubble here, our little bubble, in the vast expanse of creation, was 5,500 years ago. But Krishna, actually it said, Krishna has more incarnations. He comes as different forms. He doesn't necessarily just come as the Krishna form. He has more incarnations than there are waves in the ocean. The most recent one that we know of, that Krishna came, was 550 years ago. Krishna and Balaram came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, and we actually worship them on the altar. And you can very much well study their lives. It was only 500 years ago. So this is very, very wonderful set of pastimes and things like this. So that was the last time that we've at least perceived an incarnation of Krishna. But then there's other understandings where sometimes a devotee of Krishna gets empowered by Krishna. And in one sense, he's an expansion of Krishna's energy. And even like someone like Srila Prabhupada, who brought this all over the world, got the Beatles involved, and made this teaching crawl out of the little corners of India and spread all over the world, was a miracle of Krishna. And you could say that was an incarnation of Krishna. And actually it's said in this age, the most potent incarnation of Krishna is just his name alone. I mean, and even Jesus says, "Our Father who art in heaven," who knows the next word?
Hallowed be thy name.
What's that mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, we say it all the time, but no one knows what it means.
Like glorify, yeah.
No.
Wait,
I mean-
hollow, light up, hollow is like a light, kind of.
Yes?
So light up my name.
It's made holy. Made holy is your name. Sacred is your name. Holy is your name. So this is there. And in the Psalms it's mentioned how we should sing the glories of the Lord, to sing the Lord's name from sun up to sundown. In our tradition it's mentioned Kirtaniya Sudahari, means we should always chant the names of the Lord. So actually that's one way we could always connect to God. He can incarnate right here in your life now just by chanting his name, just by hearing his pastimes. Krishna is not he's not separate from you. You're a part of Krishna. So if you call upon him or try to interact with him through any of his absolute mediums, you will experience an incarnation of sorts. You kind of did tonight just by hearing about Krishna when you chant, the same thing. So we kind of have to end because it's getting late. And now don't worry, the feast is all coming. I know many of you, that's the exciting part of the program. But if you'd like, there's a really nice bhajan. Hishu, can we hit that? Remember, at the beginning we chanted this mantra. These are the names of God, and we're just calling out to God, hopefully with the enlightened intention to be his servant. But why you're calling out to God is very unique to you, and maybe you do have a few things on your wish list for God, and that's natural. But like I said, our great teachers have always recommended to purely approach God, to try to be of service. So we're going to do this bhajan called Gauranga Bolite Habe. I was trying to practice another one today, but I had to fix the harmonium instead of practice, even though I did kind of practice for a little bit. So I'm just going to read the... also, you asked how do we... how do we do that? How do we get self-realized?
Yeah.
Actually, this song describes a process here. So when will that opportune moment come to us, when there will be shivering of the body as soon as we chant Lord Gauranga's name? That's when Krishna came 500 years ago. While chanting Hare Krishna, when will there be tears in the eyes? When will I obtain the mercy of Lord Nityananda Chandra? That's Balaram's incarnation. When by his mercy will the desire for material enjoyment become very insignificant. This is when you know that you've made some advancement, when your material enjoyment, meaning the gratification of the senses, isn't prominent among you. When the mind is completely purified, being freed from material anxieties and desires, then I shall be able to understand Vrindavan, which is the land and pastime place of Krishna, and the conjugal or romantic love of Radha and Krishna. Then my spiritual life will be successful. When shall I be very much eager to study the books left by the 6 Goswamis, headed by Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami? They were great disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And actually we're studying some of these books now. These are continuations of their works. By their instruction, I shall be able to properly understand the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. My only aspiration is to attain the lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis, headed by Srila Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswamis. Narottam Das constantly prays to attain their lotus feet. So we'll chant this bhajan together, and then afterwards we'll chant a little Hare Krishna, and then we'll be done for today, and we'll all eat together. Does that sound cool? Okay. Thank you guys. I know, Sahil, you weren't planning to do the whole program, but you pretty much made it.
Oh yeah.
Yes, cool. Glad you came. Michael, get the mridanga.
Frank, just scroll up. Can't do it.
Can someone else do this? 'Cause I'm gonna not be able to do it. Tanmai, can you make sure the words are on there? So that is our program.
Very cool.
Very cool. Just so you know, actually what we're doing, this type of thing is actually operated and funded by a nonprofit endeavor called ISKCON of Syracuse, or the alias name of Mantra Central. So we are, any help or you would like to offer in that regard, we do need the help, but Krishna always provides a way. But if anyone's inspired to help in any way, little donation thing there. If not, don't worry about it. It's all free. And we made a very special feast. Primarily my wife made it today, but we did have help. Piyush and Rishi were in there cutting very early today. And Michael also brought the desserts today. So the only one who did not do much help at all was me. So,
You did the class.
so
Thank you so much for this class.
well, thank you, Michael. But yeah, you guys, thank you guys so much. Janmashtami's coming. That's Krishna's birthday. It's like the Christmas of Krishna consciousness. I know there will be 300 University Indian students at least coming here. Actually, we might have to rent out a different place because I don't think this place will work so well. But we have had 300 people here before, which was a pretty wild experience. But I don't think we're ready for it this year. But anyway. Yeah, go on in this way. Get a plate. Eat nicely. Eat until you're full. And we offer the food in prayer, and we hope that the Lord has sufficiently blessed this food, and that He gives you those blessings upon eating it. So yeah, thank you guys for coming. Special thanks for Sahil and Megan. I know the first time. Probably seeing what Krishna consciousness is. This kind of weird niche thing that we're doing here in this house. But I hope you were able to get something and appreciate it. Even though if you're coming from a different angle of vision, I hope you're able to get something that was valuable from the beautiful way that you are also approaching God. And so, thank you guys so much for
Thank you
joining.
for having us.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So here you
Thank
look
you for the
here.
wise word and the time you have given to us.
Thank you, Piyush, for all your service. And please go eat everything. And Peter, thank you for coming.
Share and the light.
Yeah, you ask nice questions all the time too. So
Share and the light.
please end the live.
Yeah. If you need a Bible, I would
Okay, that's good. Big or little?
Any size fish you want.
Any size.